G'day folks, it's Phil from 15-Minute Guitar Practice here. Today we're going to be looking at some simple chord theory. Now, don't panic, this is going to be really straightforward, but I wanted to cover it off because simply in the way that we learn guitar, this knowledge can get left out until quite late, and so I wanted to fill that gap. Simply by the way we learn guitar and our pathway through understanding the instrument, we all start by learning open chords, and we associate a name like D with a certain shape like this one. And that is useful up to a point, but what we haven't done there, when we've learned our open chords like D, C, G, E, E minor, what we haven't really learnt there is why it's called what it's called, and what makes E different to E minor. Apart from its sound, what are the ingredients in an E that makes it different to E minor? So that's what we're going to cover today. Now, one thing you need to be familiar with to help you with this is the major scale shape in one octave. And if you don't know that, I'm going to play a D major scale in one octave, starting at the 10th fret with my second finger. I'm just going to play 10 and 12 on the E string. And then I'm going to go 9, 10, and 12 on the A, and then 9, 11, 12 on the D string. Okay, so that's the shape you need to know that's going to help you understand this a little better. So the first thing is we're going to take that scale shape, and instead of referring to the notes in it like D and E, we're just going to give it numbers in the order in which these notes appear. So this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this is 1. This is 1 because this is an octave of that one. Okay, so it's the same note, it's just an octave higher. Okay, so with that knowledge, with that understanding that we're going to be talking in numbers, not note names, let's move on to the guts of what I want to talk about. Let's take a D chord, okay? We're playing 4 strings, and we've got 3 fingers on the fretboard. Sometimes you might hit the A as well. Okay, so you're playing 4 or 5 strings. But music theory tells us that a major chord, like this D we just played, has 3 pitches in it. Now, that can be confusing for people because, well, music theory says there's 3 pitches in there, but I'm playing 4 strings or 5 strings. And even more confusing is when you play a G or an E, you're playing all 6 strings. So how is it that there's 3 pitches in there? Well, the answer is there's just 3 unique pitches in there. The other notes that you're playing on the other strings are basically duplicates of those 3. And that's the answer. So what we're going to do is look at this D chord, and we're going to go through what numbers are appearing in this D chord, in what order, what scale numbers, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 that we just did. Okay, so here's our D chord. Now, music theory says that a major chord like that D consists of 3 pitches, and they are the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th, the 1, 3, and the 5. Okay, and now if you don't really know what that means, we use our major scale and literally count up to the 3 and the 5. So again, if we're playing a D chord, we have to start our major scale on the D note, which is at the 10th fret of our bottom E string. So here we go. That's our 1, all right? Obviously, because that's the root note. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so the 3 pitches in our D chord should be the 1, the 3, and the 5. And that is what you're hearing, a combination of all of those when you play D. Okay. But let's look at the order in which they appear, and then we can start adjusting things to help you understand how the chords are built and what changes within them for each different type of chord. So here, if we just start with the D, the open D string, okay, that's obviously our root note or our 1. Then the next note, this is the 5. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll hear that the 12th fret of the A is the same as the 2nd fret of the G string. Okay, so far we've got the 1, the 5, then we've got this note. This note is a repeat of the 1, an octave higher. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So 12th fret of the D string is the same as 3rd fret of the B. And then after that we've got this note. And that note is the 3, but an octave higher. So you can hear that the 9th fret of the A string is the same as the 2nd fret of the top E. Okay, so in order we've got our 1, 5, 1, and 3. So as you can see, we've got a 1, 3, and a 5. Okay, it's not in numerical order as we play it, but that's what we've got. We've got a 1, a 5, a second version of the 1, and a 3. So we've got 2 1s, a 5, and a 3. Okay, so that's D major. Now, let's look at D minor. The only difference between a major chord and a minor chord is that the 3 gets flattened. So the 1 stays the same, the 5 stays the same, but the 3 gets flattened. And to flatten something, you need to move it down by 1 fret. So let's look at how that rolls out. So we've got our 1, we've got our 5, we've got our repeat of our 1, and we've got our 3. So to make this a D minor chord, we need to flatten this 3 down to here at the 1st fret. So now we've got our 1, our 5, our 1 again, and our flat 3. And that is our D minor chord. So those are your major and minor. Let's look at some other chords. Let's look at some 7th chords. Let's look at a major 7 chord. Now, a major 7 contains a 1, a 3, a 5, so basically it's a major chord at its core, and it has a 7 on top. So now we're going to go and listen for our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we're listening for that. So if we take our regular D as a starting point, as you remember, we've got our 1, our 5, a repeat of the 1, and our 3. We need to get a 7 in there. What we're going to do is take our duplicate of the 1, 3rd fret of the B string, and we're going to move that. Now, obviously in the major scale, in terms of numbers, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a continuous loop. And the reverse is also true. If you're going from 7, okay, you're going 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The next number after 1 is 7 again. So it goes 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A lot of people just kind of don't make that connection. So back to how this applies to this D chord. Okay, we're going to move this, which is our 1. We've got a 1 here on the open D, and we've got this 2nd octave of the 1 on the 3rd fret of the B string. Now, if we flatten that 1, what do we get? We get 7, because 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in a big circle. Okay, so that is now what we're going to play along with our other elements. So we've got a 1, we've got a 5, we've got a 7, and we've got a 3. Now, it's not in numerical order, but we've got a 1, 3, 5, and a 7 in this chord shape here. And that is a D major 7 chord. Sound of Summer. Really mellow and kind of sweet. I love major 7 chords. Okay, Let's look at a dominant 7th chord. Okay, let's head back to our D shape. Okay, now a dominant 7th chord, often just called 7th chords, is made up of a 1, a 3, a 5, and a flat 7. So let's look at how that plays out in terms of chord shape. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to start with our D chord, and we know that it's a 1, a 5, duplicate of the 1 in the higher octave, and a 3. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take this duplicate of the 1 on the 3rd fret of the B string, and last time we flattened it from 1 to make it a 7. But now we need to flatten it further to take that 7 and make it a flat 7, again by moving it down another fret. So, if we keep that note there, and we put our other notes back in, we've got a 1, our 5, our 7, our flat 7, and our 3. And that gives us our D dominant 7th chord, or D7 for short. So that's how things work. Let's look at some other chords. What about sus4 chords? What are they? Now, sus4 chords are suspended 4th chords, and that basically means you take the 4th and you put it in, and the chord only contains a 1, a 4, and a 5. It doesn't actually contain any kind of 3, so it's neither major nor minor. So we've got our 1, our 5, our octave of our 1, and our 3. So what we're going to do is going to raise that 3 up, sharpen it by 1 fret to here on the 3rd fret of the E string, because from 3 it's only 1 fret away to 4. We'll talk a little more about the major scale formula in a second. Okay, so now we're going to keep that note in and put our other fingers down on the fretboard. So we've got a 1, a 5, octave of the 1, and a 4. So that's a D sus4. We can also make a D sus2 chord, which sounds like way more complicated than it actually is. A D sus2 is also a suspended chord, and it contains a 1, a 2, and a 5. And again, it's neither major nor minor because it doesn't have any kind of 3 in it. And it's the 3 that's the determining factor in the tonality of the chord, whether it's major or minor. So that's why a sus2 chord is neither. So we've got our root, or our 1, our 5, our octave of our root, or our octave of our 1, and our 3. Now, if we move our 3 down once to the 1st fret, we get a flat 3. If we move it down one more, as if there was a fret here, but there's no fret, so we're going to play the open string, that flat 3 becomes a 2. So that's the open E string. So to play a D sus2 chord is like this. We've got a 1, a 5, octave of the 1, and a 2. So those are very open sounding chords, the sus2 and the sus4. Let's look at a couple of others. So we've done major, we've done minor, we've done dominant 7th, we've done major 7th. We haven't done minor 7. Now, minor 7 is basically a minor chord at its core. So you've got a 1, a flat 3, and a 5. But a minor chord also contains a flat 7. So we have to make a couple of adjustments here if we start from our D chord. Okay, our D chord is a D major chord, as you know, and we've got a 1, a 5, an octave of the 1, and a 3. So the first thing we need to do is change the 3 to a flat 3. So I'm playing the 1st fret of the top E string. So now I've got that. That's a D minor chord. So what makes it a minor 7? It's that flat 7. So here is our 1, the the octave of our 1, and we're going to adjust that as we have done with other chords. So from the 1, moving it down 1 fret gives us our 7, and moving our 7 down and flatten it by 1 more fret gives us our flat 7. So then we've got this. We've got our 1, our 5, our flat 7, and our flat 3. And that is a D minor 7. So this is how these things work. We're just moving usually one note, sometimes two, within the context of the chord shape to make all of our different chords. Now you can do this with any other shape too. Let's quickly do an A chord. Okay, here's a standard A major chord. Okay, same thing applies. If we want to make an A major, an A minor chord, we look at the numbers. We've got a 1, 5, 1, 3, 5. So to make it a minor chord, we need to take the 3 and flatten it. So here's the 3. Second fret of the B string, then we're going to flatten it, move it down 1 fret. And then we put in all the other fingers that we had before. So these guys and this. A minor. What about A minor 7? So let's take this. We've got our 1, our 5, octave of the 1. So let's move this. Octave of the 1 moves down 1 fret. You've got a 7. Okay, but we need a flat 7 for a minor 7 chord. Okay, so we need to play the open string. So A minor 7, we've got 1, 5, flat 7 and flat 3, and 5 on the top. Okay, A major 7, should have done that first before minor 7, but anyway, A major 7 has a 1, 3, 5 and a 7. So if we start with our A major chord and we adjust this note on the second fret of the G, that's our octave of our 1. So we've got 1, 5, 1, 3 and 5. So we're going to move this one and we're going to move that down from the 1 and we flatten it. And remember, it becomes the 7 because it's all in a circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So from 1, flattening it becomes a 7. So then we put that note into the rest of our chord. And there it is, that beautiful sound of summer. That's an A major 7. So have a play with that. Even if you are just learning, you've got your D and your A and your E, that kind of thing. You can apply this to all your open chords and basically all chords, full stop. And that's going to help you understand the key things that determine the difference between the chords. I mean, what's the difference between a major 7 and a dominant 7? What's the difference between a major chord and a minor 7 chord? This, I think, is really useful to get students to understand not the notes they're playing, but the ingredients in the chords they're playing. Because, you know, like I said early on, this is an E, this is in E minor. Now, apart from in sound and the fact you take one finger off, you don't know why one is one and one is another. And this is what's going to help you understand that. If you've enjoyed this lesson, please give me a thumbs up or leave a comment below. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more from me. And I hope that you understand this. I think it's pretty straightforward, but let me know in the comments below if you don't or if you have a question. And, well, I'll see you around. This is Phil from 15 Minute Guitar Practice saying bye for now. Cheers.